Manchester United are in crisis mode and desperately need a rebuild. But are Mbeumo and Cunha really the players to fix United's issues? I've been put in charge of the club and I've been given 10 seasons to return Manchester United to glory and win the Champions League. Which is much easier said than done. Can I succeed where so many others have failed? United reportedly have 200 million to spend this summer, but with the new boys costing a combined 120 million, that leaves me with just 80 million to rebuild one of the biggest clubs in world football. So I raised some extra cash by selling Garnacho, Anthony and Sancho, who are all expected to leave in real life. That allowed me to bring in Christian Pulisic as the marquee signing for 38 million to start on the left wing. Elliot Anderson joins for 27 million pounds from Forest, and we also managed to grab Jacob Ramsey for a steal at 20 million from Aston Villa. I'll admit they're not the flashy signings that the fans have come to expect at Manchester United, but we finished 15th last season and we have no European football. These guys were the only players who were answering my calls. Their job is to give us stability and help us slowly climb up the table. Then we need to consistently finish in the top 4 to secure Champions League football, and once we're established in the top 4, we should have a good enough squad to win the Champions League. But that feels a million miles away right now, when we started the season by losing games against Brighton, Tottenham Hotspur and Fulham. I'm putting it down to teething issues with our new formation. We've ditched Amorim's 5 at the back for a simpler 4-3-3 that the players need to get used to. And the tactic was showing some signs of life. Mbeumo scored in a 2-0 win over Bournemouth, and Cunha bagged a brace as we beat Everton 4-1. We also managed to win the Manchester derby 1-0 when Joshua Zirkzee came off the bench and scored in the 91st minute. So after a slow start, maybe this rebuild actually is alive. But those high moments were few and far between, as more often than not, we found ourselves on the end of a defeat. By Christmas, we're only 15th and staring down the barrel of another poor season. But then we got humiliated by League One Cardiff City, who didn't just beat us, but outplayed us in the FA Cup 5th round. Here I am talking about winning the Champions League, but if we can't even beat teams in League One, I think I might be gone before the season ends. So I simplified our out of possession tactics, and incredibly, it worked. Suddenly, we seemed to work much more as a cohesive unit, giving us more possession and time to create chances for Matheus Cunha. The Brazilian became our top scorer and helped us to some important wins over the back end of the season, including against his former club, Wolverhampton Wanderers. By the end of the season, we'd climbed to 11th, which is exactly what our aim was at the start of the season. It might not be anything special, but we gave this team the stability that it needs. Now it's time to start climbing. We have 153 million to spend, which then increased as Barcelona exercised their option to buy Marcus Rashford at the end of his loan. Then I did something very risky. I thought it would be a good idea to cash in on players who are entering the last year of their contract. So we said goodbye to some crucial first team players. Bruno is still our creative engine, and Luke Shaw was one of our few consistent leaders. Losing them, it feels like I'm cutting out the heart of the club. But now we have a lot of money to spend, I need to do some scouting. And Ousmane Diomande looks like an incredible ball-playing defender, with 93% pass accuracy and winning 134 duels last season, according to FotMob, which is my go-to football app, who are giving you the chance to win some incredible prizes. I use their app to keep up with scores from over 500 leagues across the globe, and their match momentum tracker is really useful to give me an idea of how the match is unfolding and if there's an upset on the cards. I actually use FotMob every week for their in-depth stats when I'm doing my opposition research for when I'm commentating on Lincoln City games. It gives me a great idea of who the danger men are with their stats-based rating model, as well as letting me find out the small nuggets of information that take my commentary to the next level. I also find their transfer information to be extremely reliable, and FotMob is genuinely the only reason I found out that Diego Leon signed for Manchester United this summer. So I am thrilled to be teaming up with FotMob to give you guys a chance to win 10 copies of EAFC 26 and 5 Premier League shirts. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen right now to download the app. Once you're in, click the More button in the bottom right corner, and then hit settings and scroll down to redeem code. Type in PL25 and that'll take you to a Google form. Here you just need to put in your contact information and let them know I sent you, and you're entered into this massive giveaway. So make sure you get involved with FotMob's giveaway. Big thanks to them for sponsoring the video and helping me find our new centre-back in Ousmane Diomande. Selling lots of stars was a huge gamble that allowed me to spend 255 million on a mixture of talented youngsters and players about to hit their prime. We saw his stats on FotMob, and Ousmane Diomande is going to form a formidable partnership with Matthias de Ligt in the back line, and Gabri Veiga will fill in the Fernandes-sized hole in the midfield. But Semi Kiliksoy ended up being a huge surprise package. I signed the striker for the future, but the 20-year-old had other ideas. He scored his first goal for the club in a 4-0 win over Nottingham Forest, and from that moment on, the number 9 was his. He was not giving it back. Kiliksoy should be the story of the season, but instead, he's dragging a broken squad behind him. The team just weren't gelling, and we ended up losing and drawing a lot of matches. We actually look worse than we did last season. And given the amount of money that we've just spent, that is totally unacceptable. So despite Kiliksoy being in the league's top 3 scorers, we're just 15th in the table. We're now into our second season of the rebuild, and we look worse than before. At this point, even I didn't think we were going to turn this around. But in the second half of the season, Pulisic and Mbeumo came to the rescue. After both being ineffective in the first half of the season, they both started scoring goals and turning games that we would have drawn in the first half of the season into wins. So thanks to our 2 wingers, by the end of the season we climb up to 10th in the table, 1 place higher than last season and 3 points better off. Slowly but surely, we are picking up some momentum. We faced the 4th fewest shots against, we made the most dribbles out of anyone, and we have the league's 2nd and 7th top scorers. We're close. But if the team doesn't make the leap next season, this progress might be all for nothing. With 139 million to spend, I want to improve in 3 key areas. Mbeumo is too inconsistent at the right wing, Dorgu just hasn't developed at left back, and despite facing the 4th fewest shots in the league last season, Onana conceded 45 goals. So in anticipation of our new left back arriving, I sold Patrick Dorgu, only for Amar Dedic to turn us down and join PSG instead. So I pulled off a classic Manchester United move, panic and signed the first player I can find. That ended up being Bradley Locko. But I didn't compromise in goal. We've improved on Onana with James Trafford, and I am incredibly excited to see how Matthias Saulé performs on the right wing. We've also added depth with Stanisic and players for the future in Williams Barnett and Decat. They fit into a new tactic that looks to rebalance the midfield. We're keeping our attacking potency, but we're also trying to reduce the number of goals we concede. But even I wasn't expecting the changes to be as dramatic as they were. We started off the season by beating Newcastle United 4-0, and then we did the same to Leeds United, with Kiliksoy scoring 4 of the goals. Mbeumo came off the bench and scored a hat-trick against West Ham, whilst Matthias Saulé scored a brace in a 6-1 win against Southampton. However, some cracks were showing. We weren't perfect, and we did lose the odd game, with our form dipping slightly heading into Christmas. But at the festive period, it looks like United are back, as we sit top of the table. If we bottle securing a Champions League spot from here, it would be a monumental failure. But the dip in form continued, and things started to unravel. We lost to teams battling against relegation like Birmingham City and Fulham. This meant we dropped 2 seconds behind Arsenal. We then also began losing to the teams challenging us for a top 4 spots like Liverpool and Manchester City, and that put us on the brink. With 4 games to go, we're 4th in the table and just 2 points ahead of West Ham. We stayed in 4th place as we beat Spurs 3-1, but were frustrated by Southampton, who we drew 2-2 with. However, when we picked up a huge win against 3rd placed Aston Villa, 4th place looked to be ours. But a missed penalty against Crystal Palace on the final day meant that we drew 0-0. And at the same time, Aston Villa thrashed champions Arsenal 3-0. Which means we slip to 5th on the final day and miss out on the Champions League. Despite that, we have to look for the positives. And I'll admit, it is hard to see them through the heartbreak, but they are there. We've built a team that we know can fight at the top, we just now need to learn how to finish the job. We've now completed milestone number 1. Entering our 4th season, if we don't make a leap forwards, we're in real trouble. We can spend 120 million to find the extra pieces to get us there. And after selling 134 million pounds worth of players, I spent 140 million on mostly backups and youngsters for the future who have since gone out on loan. The squad we had last season were top of the table for a vast majority of the season, so I'm gambling on them being able to do the same thing again. Angelo joins on a free after leaving Al Nassr, and he's maybe the only signing who's going to play regular first team minutes. Chido Obi has also been promoted from the youth team to play backup to Kılıçsoy, whilst Diego Leon will fight Bradley Locco to start at left back. With most of the starting 11 the same, we had a solid but unspectacular start to the season. Kılıçsoy was once again our top scorer, and he helped us beat teams that were expected to be beating, but his goals couldn't help us when we played against other top teams. We lost to Arsenal, Man City and Spurs, showing that we're still just a little bit off the pace of the top 4. We're 6th in the table at Christmas, 6 points away from a Champions League spot. But we have a second chance in the Europa League. And we were flying. We won all 8 of our league phase games against some pretty decent opponents like PSV, Lyon and Marseille. We finished top of the table and go straight to the round of 16 to take on Sevilla. However, the route to the final is tough, so we can't rely on winning the Europa League to make the Champions League. But we just couldn't get ourselves going in the Premier League. Despite winning big games against top 4 challengers, Aston Villa and Liverpool, our form in March and April brought our conquest to a grinding halt. We finished with the exact same record as last season, meaning we've totally plateaued and once again miss out on the Champions League. Winning the Europa League then is the only way we can save our season and keep this rebuild moving. In our round of 16 tie with Sevilla, there were 12 goals scored across both legs. Luckily, we were the side who scored more of them. Angelo's hat-trick in the second leg helped secure an 8-4 aggregate win. Next up, it was Newcastle United, but surprisingly, we absolutely battered them. After winning 2-0 in Newcastle, we scored 5 second-half goals at Old Trafford to win 7-0 on aggregate. Now all we need to do is beat Stuttgart in the semi-finals, and thanks to goals from Diomande and Stanisic in the first leg, we have a 2-0 lead heading to Germany. But within 30 minutes of the game kicking off, Stuttgart had brought the game back to level terms, and I thought we were going to bottle another shot at the Champions League. But the ever-reliable Kılıçsoy scored twice before half-time to get us back in front. Then in the second half, Diomande and Mansverk both scored to win 4-2 on the night and send us to the final, setting up a repeat of the 2025 final against Spurs. We've won all 14 of our Europa League games this season, but if we lose to 15th, the season is a failure. The first chance fell to us when we were able to recycle a cleared corner and get back on the attack. The ball dropped to Angelo, whose low effort came back off the post. But we weren't done there. We kept the ball alive and continued to pressure the Spurs defence, forcing them into a mistake. Romero came together with Kılıçsoy and the referee gave us a penalty. Kılıçsoy then sent the keeper the wrong way and gifted us the lead in what ended up being the only highlight of a cagey first half. But Spurs came out swinging in the second half, and Xavi Simons was only just denied an equaliser. With our attacking midfield not really working, I thought I'd swap out all 3 of the players. And Pulisic made an instant impact, finding Kobe Mainoo in space, who was only denied by the crossbar. With the clock ticking down and the pressure mounting, frustration crept in, and luckily for us, Yves Bissouma picked up a second yellow card, which meant we could shut the game down. It wasn't pretty, but we've done it. We qualify for the Champions League finally by winning the Europa League. I reckon that's worth hitting the subscribe button for. With 6 seasons to go, we still have plenty of time to win the Champions League, but we're going to need to make a huge step forward next season to be competitive. We've got money, momentum, and a clear shot of winning the Champions League. But if we fall short again, it's going to be the most painful collapse yet. But with 5 loanees now ready to step up, Do we invest big or trust the system? Well, after raising another 100 million, I had a huge wad of cash burning a hole in my pocket. So I signed 2 keepers for the future and 2 English players to help with our homegrown registration. Archie Gray has established himself as one of the best playmakers in the Premier League, whereas McGarry was an overpay, but if he's this good at 19 years old, how good will he be in 5 years' time? Our focus is on the Champions League, but we need to make sure we finish in the top 4 to get there again next season. So we can't just ignore the Premier League. Luckily, our attacking depth made sure we could rotate players and still win games. By Christmas, Kilitshoy, Angelo and Gabri Veiga are all in double figures for goals. And because of that, we're in a 2-horse race for the title with Aston Villa. In the Champions League, we went unbeaten in the league phase, picking up some impressive wins over reigning champions PSG and German champions Bayern Munich. It means we top the league phase and are surely favourites to win it all. Top of the Premier League, unbeaten in Europe. For the first time, it actually feels like we might complete this rebuild. After a goalless draw in Paris in the round of 16 first leg, we took the lead at home through Williams-Barrett. However, PSG scored just before half-time and took the game to extra time. But here we beat the reigning champions thanks to a Gabri Veiga winner. Surely no one can stop us now. Apart from Napoli, who beat us 2-0 in the first leg of the quarterfinals at Old Trafford. And things didn't get any easier when we conceded 10 minutes into the second leg. But we haven't built a team of quitters. In the second half, we pulled a goal back and were then gifted a golden opportunity when Saulé was fouled in the area and he buried his penalty. But it was just too little, too late. Napoli didn't just beat us, they blindsided us. We'd finished top of the league phase, we'd beaten PSG, we were the favourites. But just like that, the dream has collapsed. However, we could still win the Premier League. We're 3 points behind Villa, with 5 games to go, and we have a game in hand. And after beating Brentford 2-0 in our game in hand, we now sit above Villa on goal difference. As long as we don't slip up, the title is ours. But, as seems to be customary in this rebuild, we lost our very next game to Southampton 2-1, whereas Villa won. So we're 3 points behind with 2 games to go, and we need a miracle. We beat Crystal Palace 2-1 in our penultimate game, but at the same time, Villa also won. So we need to beat Brighton and hope that West Ham do us a huge favour. Cardoso Varela gave us the lead just 6 minutes in. Julio Julian doubled it 15 minutes later, before Kilitshoy made it 3 half an hour in. Brighton pulled one back just before half time, but a Diomande goal sealed the victory, and we've done all that we could. But Aston Villa scraped a draw and win the title by a single point. It's brutal. After being so good all season, we walk away with nothing. But we've proved we belong at the top. Now we need to prove that we can win at the top. Because next season, there are no more excuses. We have 184 million to spend this summer, and there is one key area I want to spend it on. Cardoso Varela and Luca Williams-Barnett are both 21, but neither have really improved since they were 19 years old, and we need to have a better player in this position. So I triggered the £108 million release fee clause of Jamal Musiala, only for him to ghost us at the negotiation table. So whilst we waited for our next target, we signed Max Johnson to complete with Michael Kayode at right back for 63 million. But that left us with enough money to spend 85 million on Franco Mastantuono, who somehow wasn't breaking into Real Madrid's first team. They must be idiots though, because for us, he was a revelation. He scored a brace on his debut, grabbed the winner against Liverpool at Anfield, and helped us batter Southampton 4-0. But despite his talents, we still can't beat Aston Villa. At home we lost 2-1, and because of that, we're 5 points behind them at Christmas in what's looking like is going to be a much closer title race. Of all the teams that I thought would beat us to the Premier League title, Aston Villa was not on that list. Franco was also bagging in the Champions League, as we once again went unbeaten. He even scored past his old club Real Madrid showing them what a mistake they'd made by letting him go. But Madrid actually finish ahead of us in the league phase table, with Galatasaray being the surprise package. But I'd argue we have an easier path to the final than Real Madrid, who we could end up meeting in the final. We'd beaten RB Leipzig 4-0 in the league phase, so it was no surprise when we thrashed them 7-1 in the round of 16. This led us to a quarter-final matchup with Bayern Munich, who aren't as good as they used to be, and we beat them 5-1 on aggregate to make the semi-finals for the first time. Only Porto stand in our way, but we can't underestimate them as they've beaten the champions of Spain and England on their journey. So we need to be at our very best to beat them, which comes at a cost. We're currently level on points with Villa in the Premier League, but this rebuild is all about winning the Champions League. So I rested our key players for the next two matches, which we ended up losing to Newcastle and Southampton, who both scored their winners in the 90th minute. Resting our starters means we have thrown away the Premier League, which is something we are going to regret if we don't win the Champions League. However, it looked like that gamble was about to pay off. We took the lead early on against Porto, and then we doubled it with a penalty. From then on, we never looked like stopping. We scored 3 more goals to dominate the first leg and win 5-0. Then a goalless draw in Portugal secured our spot in the final. 1 match to go, 90 minutes to play. All that stands between us and the end of the rebuild is Chelsea, who gave us the fright of our lives 3 minutes in, when they hit the crossbar in the first half's only highlight. We didn't take a single shot in the first 45 minutes, and that is incredibly worrying. That's partly down to the fact that Kılıçsoy is coming back from an injury and only cleared to play for 60 minutes. I had thought that a fully fit Chido Obi would be more useful, but Chido and Angelo have played poorly and they need to come off. And very quickly, the 2 substitutes that we brought on combined, as Saule's perfect cross found Kılıçsoy, who gave us the lead, or so we thought. It turns out he'd strayed just offside, and the goal was disallowed. After 90 minutes of some of the worst football I've ever seen, it's still 0-0. Chelsea were fed up, and straight from the kickoff in extra time, they were on the front foot, wanting to end this game. They fed the ball through to Nkunku, who completely missed the target. That left the door open for us at the other end, and Franco's free kick was just about cleared by Chelsea. But the ball fell to Kobbie Mainoo, the academy product who has quietly lived every step of this rebuild with us. He was in the right place at the right time to produce some magic, giving us the lead of the game. Now we just have to defend for our lives. Kılıçsoy was tracking back to stop attacks, and my heart was in my mouth when I thought Mainoo gave away a penalty, but the referee waved away the protests, and in the end, it was enough. 6 seasons of falling just short, rectified by one single moment. And now, at last, Manchester United are champions of Europe again. The rebuild is complete. But I'm sure many of you will say starting with Manchester United is easy. They have so much money. So what if we started with a bankrupt football club? Go watch this video where I take over the bankrupt Brescia, who have been demoted to Serie C. Since that video came out, they've now gone fully under. So I tried to turn the club around, get them back to making money, and win their first ever Serie A title. Let's just say it wasn't quite as smooth sailing as it was with Manchester United.